Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and today I want to talk to you about one of the most common musculoskeletal complaints I see in my office, and that is shoulder pain. Now, the good news with shoulder pain is that if you address it early, it's very treatable. It's also often due to rotator cuff problems, muscle imbalances, but you also need to be screened for things like AC joint or GH joint instability, labral issues, tendon tears, ligament sprains. There's a lot of moving parts in the shoulder because it's so multi-directional that you need to have a good professional assessment done. And then you also need to take the history of the person into account so that you can develop a solid treatment plan to get the person moving again, okay? So I don't want you to think this shoulder injury is a death sentence. We can get you back. There are lots of things we can do. And I myself, at the age of 22, had a separated shoulder. So I had a grade 2 separation of this AC joint. And now with the treatments I've done and the knowledge I've accumulated, this is actually my better, stronger, more stable shoulder. So there's 3 big things that often go wrong with the shoulder. And the first one I already kind of alluded to is rotator cuff. There's often either impingement patterns going on, micro tears, or partial or full tears of the rotator cuff. And that's 4 main muscles, right? Your supraspinatus, your infraspinatus, teres minor, and your subscap. Those are the 4 muscles that we need to screen with muscle testing, as well as proper palpation along where they attach to the humerus. They are cuff muscles because they literally cuff and wrap and enclose that entire GH joint, and they help with stability as well as movement, initiation, and strength of the entire shoulder. Often impingement patterns of the supraspinatus need to be treated. We'll see tendonitis develop right down here at the bone. We'll see tons of trigger points that can pop up in the back part of the shoulder where the infraspinatus and teres minor is. So I'm always assessing and treating whatever I find there. And then we move into things like AC joint, where the clavicle meets the acromion, and quite often separations and laxity there will cause associated muscle spasm of all the surrounding tissues. And you have to remember there's a lot of muscles and tissues that go in and out of the shoulder. So between all these bones that make up the shoulder, right, you have the humerus, you have the clavicle, you have the scapula, there's 18 muscles that go in and out of there. And you'll get all kinds of misfiring, trigger points, muscle spasms. If there's instability of the GH joint, maybe you've had a separation in the past, and when that ball and socket separates or pops out, you're going to get micro tears of the ligaments, the joint capsule, as well as the rotator cuff, because those are the things that add stability. So history of any dislocation is important, even if it just went out and in really quick. Any contact sports, car accidents are really important as part of the history, because if you have the seatbelt here and there's a high force car accident, that keeps the clavicle in one spot, but then it causes like a shearing motion at the AC joint. So I'll always ask people, were you passenger, were you driver? Because the seatbelt there can cause tremendous AC joint dysfunction. And then people just have chronic pain. They'll have muscle spasms that cause pinching of the nerves, so they'll get tingling and numbness down their arm and hand, and they may feel it here, but it's all coming from up there because that seatbelt sheared the AC joint because the clavicle was trapped when the person got thrown. And so AC joint can also come from contact. So it could be like, maybe it's a lacrosse or rugby or football player. That was how I injured mine. You fall on an outstretched hand or into the boards, or you tackle someone. The AC joint is a critical piece that needs to be assessed, and it doesn't show up on x-ray. All that you maybe will see is a slight separation, but if it's just ligament laxity there and the bone has not been totally displaced, you may be missing something if you just leave it up to an x-ray. So that's where proper palpation and testing of the muscles and the stability of that joint is really important. And then again, fixing what you find. If there's AC joint laxity or glenohumeral, ball and socket laxity, prolotherapy is a wonderful treatment because injections of the dextrose solution creates a little bit of inflammation there, and then it causes collagen deposition, healing factors, growth factors, and blood flow to come in and tighten that area up. And then when stability is returned to these joints, the muscles can relax and get back to moving the joint as opposed to spasming to try and lock it into place. That's what happens during times of ligament laxity with the shoulder. If the ball and socket is lax or the AC joint is lax, the muscles will pull double time and spasm to support it. And that's where getting rid of trigger points, adding stability back to these joints is paramount for a fully functioning shoulder, okay? Labrum tears are also really important to rule out. So you have 2 biceps muscles, right? You got your short head and long head. Most people just think it's for flexing the elbow. But the bicep actually goes up, and short head goes to the coracoid process here, and the long head goes up and in and attaches to a piece called the labrum. And the labrum is wrapped right around the joint capsule at the superior glenoid tubercle. And so it's like way in there. Hard to get with massage, hard to get with ultrasound, but needles can get quite a bit deeper. So there's an approach you can go from up here to actually get in and on top of that labrum, because if there's pain into this flexion position, or when you load the bicep in this position, this is a really good test for it, by the way. You bring it across the body and try and resist there, and go thumb down and do the same thing. This puts a ton of stress through that biceps tendon, and if it's pulling on that labrum or it's partially torn or irritated, you're going to feel it. It's just as good as some MRIs to do this. It's called an O'Brien's test, and check and see what's the stability of that labrum. And so that's all about biceps. And again, most people think that's all about the elbow, but it crosses the shoulder, so a very important muscle to rule out when it comes to shoulder pain. And people will notice that. They'll be like, yeah, I can't do incline press. Anything that loads that labrum and biceps tendon just feels terrible. And that's another keynote too. Need to be able to figure out, okay, what movements can I do and what can't I do? Someone that has shoulder injury, like flat bench, might be really painful. When I had an AC joint separation, just benching the bar felt like a knife was going through there. Dips, I was pretty intolerant to dips. Doesn't feel good when people don't have good shoulder stability. So you got to go through this checklist with people and find, okay, what really irritates you. That gives you more clues as far as what you need to do to treat it, okay? One of the best treatments I've found too for shoulders is just getting rid of all the trigger points. Because it's such a multi-axial joint, you're gonna see lots of compensation and trigger point patterns throughout. And trigger points is just a really fancy term for sore spots when you push on them with muscles. Think of it like a knot. And with the tip of a needle, if you hit that trigger point right, it causes a momentary contraction followed by a relaxation, which is a really cool phenomena. So you actually can hit the tight spot. It gets a little tighter for a microsecond, and then you get full release. And then we add a little bit of a local numbing solution to make it a bit more comfy and just help reset the area, get a bit more blood flow going. And this can be a tremendous treatment. It's like having 5 massages in one, because it gets deep to the root of the problem. So we get rid of the trigger points. We do prolotherapy on any tendons or ligaments that are lax, or maybe we're dealing with partial tears. And over the course of 3 to 6 treatments, this can really rehabilitate shoulders. And quite often, by the time people come into my office, they've tried a lot of different treatments. So maybe they've done your standard physical therapy, chiro, massage. They've gotten a certain amount of relief from that. But as long as there's chronic trigger points and laxity of either ligaments or tendons, those need to be addressed. And that's where I can come in and add a really important layer, okay? Another tricky thing with shoulders too is you don't want to sleep on them if possible. And most people will say, yeah, it's painful on that side, but you have to remember, once you fall asleep, your body just does weird things. So you need to, at all costs, try and not sleep on it. I was in a course years ago for applied kinesiology, and they said, you know, you could tape something on your shoulder that when you lie on that side, it's very uncomfortable. So maybe like tape a marble there, or something that'll push into you. And then that way, when you fall asleep, you're going to avoid it. And then if you subconsciously roll in the middle of the night, your body is much less likely to stay on that side. It'll kind of shy away from it, because that just further is going to shear the ligament laxity if you have like an issue with an AC joint or the GH joint. So you're trying not to sleep on that side. Prioritize sleep to make sure you heal. Collagen and vitamin C is really, really good, because collagen is the raw materials you need to build ligaments and tendons back up. So if you're getting, you know, regenerative injection treatments like prolotherapy or PRP, if you get more collagen from, you know, bone broth, proper high quality protein diet plus collagen powders, that gives you more raw materials to heal this area. And collagen is really dependent on vitamin C. So in order to twist that collagen into its triple helix molecule, you need to make sure you get some vitamin C, whether it's 500 or 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. That is a good thing to pair with the collagen. Make sure you're adequately hydrated, avoid smoking and excess alcohol consumption, balance blood sugar. All the things and factors that improve health and healing is super important. So yeah, if you're dealing with shoulder issues, if you haven't been able to figure this out, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below and reach out. And if you think someone would benefit from this video, please share it with them. And as always, thank you for watching.